It's time for the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Each week, Trading Stocks Made Easy demystifies stock trading and investing so you can profit big. And now, here's the host of Trading Stocks Made Easy, the wealthy investor, Tyrone Jackson.
Well, welcome. It's Tyrone Jackson, and welcome back for another episode of Trading Stocks Made Easy. You know, I am amazed at how many of you actually listen to the show. And if we're late on a particular episode, or sometimes we take a break for the summer, a lot of you are saying, where is the next episode? So I am thrilled that you listen to the show. I know a number of you, because you've stopped me out in public and you say, I've listened to every episode at least once. I am honored and thrilled. The whole idea is that you actually get a financial education here about wealth building, the stock market, and the world of financial possibilities. So on today's show, I wanted to do something that was very interesting, a little bit off the beaten path, but still very relevant to wealth building. So today, believe it or not, we're going to talk about your credit. This show is targeted a little bit more to personal finance outside of wealth building, but it's really an important part of wealth building. So I think this topic deserves some time and attention. You see, I always tell you that wealth is nothing but a series of positive habits. That's how you get wealthy. You put a little bit of money away in the stock market in your online trading account on a regular and consistent basis. Put it into the right stocks, start investing first, then start trading, and you watch your world change as you start to generate profits. Well, one of the things happens, many of you who listen to the show actually do trade in the stock market. You do volatility trade, you trade leaps options and covered calls on a regular and consistent basis. So you've learned the wealthy investor approach, you've embraced it, and you've seen it make a difference in your life. Well, now that you start generating income from the stock market on a monthly and regular basis, what happens next? Well, it's different for different people. Some people like to start wealth building. What does that mean? They take some of their profits from stocks and they start to buy a piece of real estate that they're going to rent out to someone else. So now they start wealth building not only in the equity markets, but also in the world of real estate. When you start wealth building and you're moving outside of the world of the stock market, one of the tools that you'll need to have at your disposal is good credit. Da-na-na-na-na. So where I grew up, good credit was something that was highly sought after, but not often achieved. Let's just put it that way as I put my college vocabulary to work there. Well, today we're going to be talking to a credit expert who I am thrilled will be here in the studio with me to take you step by step through the world of credit, why it's significant, and everybody should be aware of what it is. We're getting a lot of emails these days saying, hey, monitor your credit here, monitor your credit there. But do you really need those kind of services? So today's show is not just about wealth building, but a tool that all wealthy people use, which is good credit. Back with our credit expert and all of the basic ideas necessary to have great credit right after you take a listen to this.
You're listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Want to learn more about how to trade and invest in the stock market? Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products. That's thewealthyinvestor.net/products and order the Wealthy Investor's Guide to Stock Market Success audio series. This easy-to-follow 5-CD audio series and manual will teach you the basics of how to buy and sell stocks, how to collect quarterly dividends for life, plus hidden income generating strategies like covered call writing and volatility trading. Start creating financial freedom right now. Get the financial education you need to get ahead. Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products.
And welcome back. Well, as I promised before the commercial break, we are actually talking on today's show about your credit and credit repair. And joining me live here in the studio is someone I'm just thrilled could fit it into his schedule today. And that is Gene Babitchenko. Gene, welcome.
Thank you.
You are a master credit repair expert.
Well, I've been doing it for about 20 years now.
Your expertise is something that we can rely on. I'm so excited that you're here today.
Glad I could help.
I'm so excited, Gene. I actually wore new, fresh socks. So do you get how important this show is to me?
It must be really important.
I changed my socks just for you.
Wow.
All right. I don't want to waste any time. I want to get right into it. Your history first is you have a long history in the banking business.
Yeah.
First as an account executive, and then you were like a loan officer, right?
Actually, I was a loan officer first.
Okay.
And then afterwards, I went into banking.
Right. And
Yeah.
your expertise in loans, you weren't doing auto loans. You were
No,
doing...
it was home loans.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So everything we do here, Gene, is really for the benefit of the listeners so
Of
that
course.
people get that financial education. When you're applying for a home loan, so I had a little stint in there as a real estate investor. I still own real estate.
Okay.
And boy, is your credit important, especially
course.
these days.
Of course.
Okay.
Back in the day, they used to have the subprime lending where pretty much anybody can get a loan. That pretty much died when the whole economy crashed. So now you actually have to have good credit to get a loan. But it's not just enough to get the loan. The better your credit is, the better loan you can get. And especially if we're talking about places like here in LA, a difference of 0.25%, 0.5%, it could be the difference in hundreds of dollars every single month in payments. And if the credit is really kind of on the edge of bad, people have to get hard money loans, which is 3-4% higher than a normal conventional loan. And those people are literally paying twice as much for their mortgage than they have to.
Okay. So your credit is essentially your ability to pay your bills on time.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And that includes student loans, credit cards, car payments, if you have an existing mortgage, and maybe medical bills, for example?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, and let's go really slow so that everybody really understands. Your credit score is a measurement. You get a score based on how well you pay your bills
Yes, exactly.
and how much debt you have, correct?
How about it's obviously your credit history, how long it is, your total overall debt compared to your available credit. A lot of people make one primary mistake when they're trying to improve their credit by paying off bills, and the primary mistake is they try to pay off loans as opposed to revolving credit. Revolving credit is credit cards, open credit that you could keep adding to and removing. Loan balances generally don't hurt your credit score, where revolving credit does. The goal is to keep it under 30%. As long as you're using 30% or less of your available credit, it won't affect your credit score negatively.
Okay, so let's give a clear illustration. If I have a credit card
Yes.
and my line of credit is $5,000,
Correct.
are you suggesting if I only use 30% of the $5,000 on that card,
Yeah.
it'll have a positive effect on my
Well,
credit
it
score?
won't have a negative effect. The positive effect comes from the length of time that you've had the card and your payment history. But as far as the way the balance affects you, positive or negative, you should keep it under 30%. As soon as you pass that 30% mark, it starts to affect you negatively. But
Okay, so
by
if
the
I-
way, if you have 5 cards, it's the cumulative. It's not on each card that they judge it on. It's your total overall debt compared to your overall credit availability.
I see. So if I have a $5,000 credit limit and I'm using $2,500 of that, essentially not good.
Not good.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I have a $5,000 credit limit and I only have $100,
Then you're good.
right?
But if you have a $5,000 credit card and you're using $2,500 and you have another $5,000 credit card and you're not using any of it, then you're still okay.
I see.
Because it's
okay.
the cumulative amount of debt compared to your total amount of credit availability.
Okay. Now let's go to the credit score. The highest score that one can achieve is what?
Every bureau is a little different, but generally it's around 830.
830.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
about the highest it goes.
Now, there are 3 credit reporting agencies.
Yes.
They are what?
Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion.
Okay. Say them one more time.
Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. And there's a couple little ones like Innovis. Only a small percentage of people use it. You almost never see it. But there's a couple little ones, but the 3 major ones is what I concern myself with.
Now here, and most banks, if they're going to lend you money for real estate, they're going with the top 3.
Of course.
Now, here's what a lot of people don't understand. You can have 3 different scores, and when you're applying for a mortgage, everybody wants to know your middle score.
Exactly.
Now, why is it that there are 3 reporting agencies, and they can each give you a different credit score?
Well, there's lots of reasons for it. The main one is this. Not every company reports to all 3 credit bureaus. In order to report to a credit bureau, you have to actually have a membership and an agreement with that credit bureau to report. The different credit bureaus have different requirements on whether or not they'll allow you to report. So you don't always find the same information in all three credit reports. A lot of collection agencies, for instance, only report to one. So the scores vary slightly. They should be close, but if you, for instance, have one negative item, especially a new one, on one bureau and not on the other two, then one bureau is going to have a much lower score than the other two. And the way it affects you is the newer the delinquency is, the more it hurts your score. And a lot of people don't understand that, for instance, a late payment from last month will hurt your score more than a bankruptcy from last year. So it's not necessarily how bad the account is, how far it's gone. It's how recent the delinquency is, and that's what affects your score the most.
Okay. So it's been my experience for people who, work every single day and make a great living or work hard at making a living. Many of them have no sense of their credit score at all. Why is that?
Well, you'll be surprised. My clientele ranges from the guy that just got out of jail and trying to rebuild his life to the CEO. And there is no demographic that's affected by this more than another. I find all the time I'll have doctors, lawyers, people that have a lot of money, but they don't want to pay their student loans, or they have a medical emergency or something and they get a medical collection from out of state or something that they don't even think about. There's so many different ways that it could affect you. There's so many places it could come from. Nobody is immune from it. There's no demographic that's immune from it. I have celebrities that I work on, and half the time that I tell them this is on your report, they'll turn around and say, I have no idea where it came from. One of the reasons is because they usually have finance managers that take care of their bills anyway. But in other cases, it's just stuff you don't really think about a lot of times. You don't think about, I forgot I got in an accident a couple months ago and I got a bill from New Hampshire, And also another thing that happens on a regular basis is a lot of people help other people out, usually to their own detriment. People co-sign for other people, things of that nature. And I usually tell my clients never to do that, but I'm guilty of doing it myself.
Yes.
And everybody is.
Yes, because everybody has a family member who needs a little something.
Exactly. So my professional opinion, unfortunately, doesn't always correspond to reality because everybody wants to help someone out that they care about.
Okay. So ideally, we would all love to have a credit score 800 and above.
Sure.
Or at least the high sevens.
Yeah, even in the sevens are good.
Because that signals to a bank or lending institution
that you're responsible.
You are the kind of person we can take a risk on, and the risk is lower. What starts to raise the eyebrow for the lending institution is what? 640 or lower?
Well, it all depends on what you're trying to do. Different companies have different criteria on how they loan. Like, for instance, I found out, and I'm not sure if this is completely accurate. This is just what I was told by a sales rep. But for instance, Toyota, they don't want to give loans to anybody that's under 660. Credit cards, oftentimes, when you apply for a credit card, it's not always score-based. Sometimes you could apply, you could have a 750 score, but one negative item and they automatically decline you. So not everything is always score-based as far as qualifying, but generally speaking, 700 and above is what people want to see.
Okay. However, banks, when it comes to, and especially these days with tighter federal regulations, banks really appreciate 7 and higher.
Of course.
Really, these days, they like 690 or higher for a mortgage, right?
Well, we used to say that 680 was the benchmark. Okay. 680 and above used to be considered a credit. Now they want over 7.
Now they want over 7 because they want the lowest risk customers possible.
Yeah, and especially with, after the whole financial crisis and everything, they want to make sure that it's going to be the most responsible people that are getting loans. For a while, banks weren't lending to anybody. And
even I remember the story. Even people who had 795s couldn't get 30-year mortgages.
Exactly.
Right. So part of lending criteria is also based on economies, right? So, for example, if the economy is doing really well, we're in lower unemployment, banks are much more willing to lend.
Which they are now, by the way.
Yes. We're finally seeing a loosening up.
We're even seeing some stated income loans coming back, meaning if whoever doesn't know what that is, that basically means for people that are self-employed who usually don't report all their income, stated income means that based on your credit and based on your bank statements, you don't have to provide actual proof of income, just based on those two.
Now, here's the thing that's also interesting, because I think we should probably make a distinction between home loans and car loans, because I travel a lot. So no matter what city I'm in, there's always a commercial for bad credit, bad credit, bad credit, bad credit. We can get you a loan, right? Yeah. And it's like the same hypey sales commercial constantly.
They have companies like that do it. The problem is that the loans they do give you, it's usually like at a 25% interest. And by the time you're done paying off the car, you've paid 2 to 3 times the amount of the worth of the car. It's bad enough that the car depreciates on its own and you're upside down as soon as you buy it. Now you're paying 2 to 3 times as much for that car as you should. Whereas if you had good credit, almost any dealer will give you 0%, 2%, 3%, 5%, something reasonable. But when you have bad credit, the dealers have to go to a third-party bank. They're always, 20%, 18%. And you're literally paying twice as much for everything you buy.
Simply because your credit is bad.
Yeah.
Right.
It alleviates the risk.
So there really is a payoff to monitoring your credit and paying your bills on time, which seems basic, but things happen in life, right?
I usually tell people to monitor their own credit. There's a lot of companies out there that do credit monitoring, and, they have their place. And for people that are too busy to do it, I guess they're a good idea. But it's really not that hard. There's so many companies out there, websites like Credit Karma, for instance, where you can just do it for free. And they send you alerts if anything changes. So I don't know. I've never been a big fan of hiring companies to do it for you. But, whatever makes you feel comfortable.
But there are services out there that are reputable, is really what you're saying.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So let's just stay along this lines of car loans versus home loans. I have found it's relatively easy to get a car loan. So here, I tell this story all the time. I was out with my daughters in New York. And in New York, I drive Jeeps. When I'm in Los Angeles, it's all about the Range Rovers, baby, because you're in Los Angeles, right? So I had this old Range Rover. We were driving around, and all of a sudden, we're coming out of Panera Bread one day, and the car just won't start, right?
Okay.
And I tried again, and it just won't start. And now it won't start. And then when it started, it wouldn't back up. So I called AAA. We go over to the Jeep dealer. They're like, this car is shot. So I was just planning on taking them shopping that day. We wind up at the car dealer, and I wind up getting a brand new car. It's not only because my credit was good. They said, do you have any assets? And I was like, well, I have several accounts at my online trading account. Done. Yeah. So was it my credit that got me this new car? Or was it the fact that I have online trading accounts?
It was your credit.
Okay.
Overall, it's going to be your credit.
Okay.
There was a time back in the day where I could walk into any dealership and not put a penny down and take home whatever car I wanted. And I've done it a couple times.
Right.
It's changed a little bit. They want to check incomes now and things like that. Even if you have good credit, they want to see that you can actually afford to make the payments. But overall, credit's always going to be the number one issue.
Okay, let's talk about this other thing, because another thing that I hear a lot of people talk about. Well, I have a good relationship with my bank. Yeah. Therefore, my bank will always loan me money.
Wrong.
Right. Okay. Why is that a myth?
Well, there are certain types of accounts that a bank manager, for instance, might be able to help push through. It happens sometimes, but the reality is you're a number. When you're dealing with a big bank, you're generally a number. And the decisions aren't being made in the branch on whether or not you're going to qualify for a loan. The decisions are being made by corporate. And corporate's not going to be the one that knows you, so
you're just a file for the person
exactly.
who's
You're just
it.
a file. You're just a number to them. So it's not that personal. Well, I'm friends with people at the bank and they know me and they're going to help me, because the branches don't make those decisions.
Okay.
Okay.
Now I want to focus a little bit more on the home. At the time that we're actually doing this episode, I'm putting another level on one of my houses, right? Okay. So I never worry about my credit. The thing that gets me is the underwriting department. Now, let's just talk about what the underwriting department is. After I've submitted my tax returns and all of my assets and all of that, there's going to be some guy or girl who looks at that file, and they're going to go over it generally with a fine-tooth comb, and those are the people I don't like. Because I always say the underwriters are the people who were picked on in school, and now they have a little bit of power.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's their job. It's their job to go through your file and make sure that everything is on the up and up. I mean, they're the ones that ultimately make the decisions whether or not the bank is going to lend you money. So, of course, I mean,
Yes, but to put an addition on your home and someone says, hey, can you provide the phone bill from 7 years ago to make sure, because it was a $20 missed payment, I guess I'm being a little personal here.
Okay.
For an underwriter to say, just send me proof that the $20 was paid. I mean, that's not. Does that really have to be a condition on a loan?
You know
Come
what?
on.
In most cases, they're not concerned about $20 bills.
Okay, so let's switch gears here.
Okay.
One of the reasons, and this is why people come to see you, by the way, one of the reasons that people have inaccurate information on their credit report is because they can have a common name.
That is true.
So, for example, Bill Smith or William Smith or Mary Smith, right? Someone else's information could actually be listed on your credit
It does
report.
happen.
How do you remove that?
When people pull credit reports, they basically provide three pieces of information. They provide the name, they provide the address, they provide the social. If you ever look at a report, like for instance, Experian is the one you really see it on most often. There's AKAs, there's variations of the social security number. Anytime somebody pulls a report and just mistypes one letter, it gets saved. So if you pull a report and you have a similar name in a similar area, even if the social security number is wrong, sometimes the information does get mixed.
Okay, so people come to you to have that information removed.
And that's generally the easiest thing to fix, by the way.
How do you fix it?
It's basically just writing to the bureaus, providing ID, and forcing them to verify the information. And in most cases, in a case like that, that's something that's usually pretty easily done.
Okay, so here's this trick that used to work 10 years ago. Now it's a little bit different. You would pull your credit report. If it's known as a derogatory. If there's a derogatory on your credit report, you would fill out 10 inquiries, 10 letters. You'd send it to the credit report, and you ask for the information to be removed.
Yes.
So the credit reporting agency has to go to the creditor and respond to each one of those 10 requests. And usually by request 4, they go, just remove it because the creditor hasn't responded.
Look, you know what? I'll tell you, this work isn't exactly – it's not a magic bullet. It's just a matter of staying on top of it. What I do isn't that different. I mean, I'm basically writing to the bureaus. I'm writing to the companies. I'm forcing them to provide proof for everything that's being reported. And in most cases, it's just a matter of breaking down the communication between the creditor and the bureau. And if they can't properly verify the information, by law, the bureau has to remove it.
By federal law.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I do isn't really that different. There's lots of people out there to do credit repair. And the only real differential between them is just how persistent you are. Because a lot of times things don't come off on the first try.
That is correct.
And you just have to keep pushing them until they do. And most companies out there, they'll try it once or twice, and then your file ends up, in a box somewhere. So it's just a matter of persistence is all it is.
Because I was really hungry for knowledge when I first started wealth building. And it was plain to see that I had better learn how this credit game works because it's part of wealth building and financial responsibility.
I mean, look, if you're wealth building, you're talking about buying properties and you're talking about things that are going to involve, obviously, credit. If you're buying a property and you're paying twice as much for it as you should be paying, obviously you're not wealth building, or at least you're wealth building a lot slower.
Yes.
So, of course, it comes into play. You got to have good credit in order to maximize your investment.
Here's another question that everybody wants to know. An inquiry. If a bank looks at your credit report, does that affect your score?
It does, but not that much and only temporarily. People make a big deal out of inquiries. And what I tell my clients is if you have negative history and you have inquiries, I'm going to concentrate on the negative history because in the end, it's going after inquiries is like stepping around the dollars to get to the pennies. They just don't affect you that much. Now, if you have a bunch of them, if you have like 20 inquiries in the last, couple months or whatever, that'll drop your score. That could easily drop your score 20, 30, 40 points. But most people, when they're talking about inquiries, they usually have 1 or 2, 3, 4 in the last few months. I usually just leave it alone.
Hasn't there been a new rule that's been in place that if you have, let's say, again, back to the mortgage, if you're applying for a mortgage, you're allowed to go to 3 different banks?
You are, and the same thing happens with cars, especially with cars. Most people that have a lot of inquiries like that, they're usually people that go to a car dealership, they apply for the loan, their credit isn't quite A+ where the dealership wants it. So they'll try to run that loan, or they'll try to run that credit through 4, 5, 6, 7 different banks to see who gives them the best deal. And unfortunately, they all show up on your credit report. I've heard a lot of times people saying that it doesn't affect your score in that scenario, but actually witnessing it, I think it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of information cannot be removed from your credit score?
Well, there's pretty much anything can be removed.
A bankruptcy can be removed?
A bankruptcy can be removed just like anything else. Now, a bankruptcy, just to let you know, is probably the most difficult thing to remove, because in a bankruptcy, you can't just remove the bankruptcy itself. You have to work on all the items that are included in bankruptcy. So when someone files a bankruptcy, they usually include all their debts in it. So every one of those debts still show up on your credit report. A lot of people don't know that when they file bankruptcy. They're thinking they're doing this and they're fixing their credit at the same time. The reality is, when you file bankruptcy, that means that every single creditor is showing on your account as a charged-off account, included in bankruptcy. And every single one of those needs to be removed. So when removing a bankruptcy, it's not just one thing. It's a plethora of things that need to be removed.
How about latenesses on student loans? Can that be removed?
Late on student loans can be removed. The student loans, there's 2 systems out there that are actually pretty easy sometimes. That's child support and student loans.
Okay.
I think it's probably just because they're internally disorganized. But those 2 actually seem to be fairly easy to remove, both student loans and child support lates.
Who would get a derogatory on a late child support? Someone has to report that, right? The spouse?
Well, no. What happens is when you get child support, you get paid directly from the state, and then the state takes it away from the person who has to pay it. It's not a direct payment from that person.
Yeah, but that's only if you've had to go to court.
If you go to court, yeah.
Right.
Well, otherwise you wouldn't have a child support case. So,
right.
Yeah. So
in the event that you're paying child support and the state got involved,
yeah,
now that's going to be reported on your credit report.
Yeah.
So the ex-spouse or the baby mama or whoever it is,
they still get their money, but the money has to be collected also from the other side from whoever's paying it. If you don't pay it, they report it.
Oh, so if you get caught by the state not making child support payment, that spouse
reported.
is a creditor?
I can't really call the spouse a creditor. I will call the state a creditor.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. On the spouse's behalf.
On the spouse's behalf, exactly.
That is really wild. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and as far as student loans, one of the most common things is they restart the repayment schedule on student loans a lot before the person's actually done with school.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Okay.
You get your student loan and you're going to school and they schedule it to start at a certain time. But a lot of times the people haven't finished school yet, or they haven't started working, and the loans are supposed to stay deferred. A lot of times what happens is the loans get restarted to the point, where you have to start paying them back, but the person hasn't finished school yet, or they haven't started working yet. So in a lot of those cases, that loan is still supposed to be deferred, and that's one way I actually fight those all the time.
Okay, let's talk about this because we're going to run out of time here. First of all, it's great to have you here.
Glad to be here.
I can hear people right now going, Tyrone, this was a good show.
Oh, thanks.
Let's talk about parents who get credit cards for their kids to start their credit history. Good idea, bad idea?
Fantastic idea.
Why?
I'll tell you what. This is what's called piggybacking. If you're trying, and it's not just for parents. People ask me all the time, how do I build credit? Because I'm not one of those people that adds fictitious trade lines. There's companies out there that do it. I completely stay away from it. But I always tell people the quickest way to build credit is piggybacking, which means have a friend or relative add you to an existing account. The person adding you to the account is at zero risk. You're the only one that's actually at risk in that case, because if the person adding you doesn't pay their bills, it could affect you. The beauty of it is that as an authorized user, it's very easy to take this stuff off. So if they don't pay their bills, taking that off the report's really easy because you technically have no responsibility for the debt. But the beauty is, and I tell everybody the same thing, have them add you. But when you get the card, when they get the card for you, tell them to shred it. You never have to look at the account. You never have to see it. You never have to use it. They never have to worry about you using it and not paying it. As long as they pay their bills on time, it's going to help your credit.
That is amazing.
And that's the quickest way. What happens is when they add you, you're not getting new credit. The way it's reported, it looks like you've had the credit as long as they have. So if somebody adds you to a card that's 10 years old, you have 10 years of instant credit history.
That is amazing. And so therefore your score could be at the highest level.
It goes up a lot because one of the factors that they look at is in scoring is how old your credit is. And if it's all brand new credit, your score isn't going to be very high.
Right, because you don't have the history.
Exactly. But if somebody adds you onto a card that's got 20 years of history on it, all of a sudden, boom, you have 20 years of credit history.
Okay, now let me give you this. This is my number one Tyrone Jackson trick for credit repair. It's called secured loans.
Yeah.
So if you go to a bank, and you can do a secured loan for only $500, you give the money to the bank, they're going to put it in an account, and they're going to secure it, and then that loan is going to be paid back automatically, $50 a month, and it shows up as a positive payment on your credit report.
It does.
Granted, it doesn't have the history. But if you did that 3 times in a year, you would have all these loans that have been paid off.
Yeah, you could do it. Absolutely. It's something you could do, but I tell people to do that when they don't have the option of piggybacking, when they don't have anybody that can add them on. Because in the end, like you said, it's brand new credits, so it does take time before it actually helps you. Scores aren't going to go up that much when you get it. It's in fact, when you first get any account, it drops your score a little bit. And then once you start building history, it goes back up.
Well, here's the idea. If I did the secured loans last year, now history.
Now you have a year of history there.
There you go.
Exactly.
Okay.
And chances are they've probably taken you off the secured portion. Have they switched you over yet to make it like an unsecured
Well,
card?
when I used to do it, I just did it for 90 days.
Oh, okay.
Right. And then pay it off, and it would show balance paid off.
Gotcha.
And that's what banks like to see.
Yeah, of course.
So, okay. So, there are good credit reporting agencies online from your view. I'm not reporting credit repair agencies and monitoring agencies from your point of view.
There are. I mean, look, there's a ton of them out there. I don't know how much you're allowed to, how detailed, but there's LifeLock, and there's a lot of companies out there. Even the bureaus themselves do credit monitoring now. We have the Equifax, that whole breach that just happened.
Yes, and a lot of people are impacted by that, Gene.
They are, but you know what? It's hard to say what that impact is because the reality is it basically impacted just about every person with credit in the country.
Well, they say 143 million people.
Yeah, exactly. And you take out the kids and you take out the seniors, and you're basically looking at almost the entire population of the U.S. that's using credit on a regular basis. So I don't know how much it's going to impact each individual. Every single person that goes to Equifax and puts in their social gets a message that says your information might have been affected. What are they going to do with 143 million, credit reports? Who knows?
Well, they better fix it.
It's like shooting fish in a barrel. You don't know if you're going to be that one person that actually gets negatively affected, or if you're just one of the 150 million people whose information is out there.
But that would then affect bank loans, because if you've got everybody scoring lower, then the bank is either going to have to use a different criteria for loans or not rely on that credit reporting agency.
From what I hear, they've already fixed the problem.
Oh, okay.
What I also hear is that they knew about the problem previously and didn't fix it.
Oh, okay.
But from what I hear, they fixed the security glitch, and now it should be good. I don't know if there's going to be any kind of reparations of any kind, anybody that's affected. I have no idea, what they're going to do with that. I don't know if there's any kind of class action lawsuits out there. I'm imagining there probably will be pretty soon.
That's an easy pick,
Yeah, it's going to happen eventually. But at this point, or at least I haven't run into anybody that said, I'm a victim of identity theft as a result of this.
Okay. Final round of questions.
Sure.
Why do people come to you to repair their credit?
Because they don't want to do it themselves.
Okay. So it's a service.
Yeah, it's a service. I mean, look, what I do is not anything that people can't do for themselves.
Yeah, but you're really good at what you do.
I am, and I've been doing it for a long time. And again, the whole thing is that most people don't want to take the time to sit there and write 20, 30, 40 letters to people.
It's a process, and it takes time.
It takes time. And it's a lot of people, when they do it themselves, they try it once and give up. And when you hire me, basically, that I'm going to be sitting on top of it, and I'm just going to be pushing them and pushing them and pushing them until the stuff comes off. Again, I'm not doing anything that anybody can't do themselves. I just do what people don't want to do themselves.
That is correct. So Gene, I live in two cities, right? At my house in New York, I don't want to cut the grass when I get there. I want a guy to say everything is taken care of, right? So you are a valuable service.
I like to equate myself to an accountant as far as that goes. People say, well, I could do it myself. I'm like, yeah, you can do your taxes yourself too. And in most cases, it's really easy, especially with all this tax stuff out there. TurboTax or whatever. But people still hire accountants because they don't want to do it themselves, number one. And number two, there's certain expertise that they may find something that you're just not aware of.
I say they should hire you, Gene.
I hope so.
All right. How do people reach you if they want to get in touch with you?
Real easy. You know what? I don't have a huge corporation behind me. It's really just me. I do all the work myself. You're not going to run into any kind of automated, telephone services or anything. I'm just going to give you my cell phone, and that's it. Call me. My cell phone is 818-634-9879.
One more time.
818-634-9879.
And tell everyone your first and last name.
Gene Babitchenko. And just Gene is fine because it took me to the age of 13, 14 to be able to pronounce my last name.
Hey, listen, you are helping so many people by being here today.
Well,
I'm going to have you back.
Okay.
Because I know this is going to be one of our highest rated shows.
I will come back anytime you want me to.
All right, Gene. Well, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, very much appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me.
You're listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Want to learn more about how to trade and invest in the stock market? Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products. That's thewealthyinvestor.net/products and order the Wealthy Investor's Guide to Stock Market Success audio series. This easy-to-follow 5-CD audio series and manual will teach you the basics of how to buy and sell stocks, how to collect quarterly dividends for life, plus hidden income generating strategies like covered call writing and volatility trading. Start creating financial freedom right now. Get the financial education you need to get ahead. Visit thewealthyinvestor.net/products.
And welcome back. Now, I really hope that you benefited from today's show. As you know, I do this show to bring you experts and to bring you thoughts and ideas that perhaps you wouldn't have on your own. If you're going to be financially successful in this world at this point in this time, you must have some sense of your credit history, as well as how you want to use your good credit, because it's a tool that helps you as you're wealth building. Hey, listen, this is Tyrone Jackson, a Wealthy Investor. I'm so thrilled that you spent some time with me today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
You've been listening to the Trading Stocks Made Easy podcast. Be sure to rate and review our show on iTunes. While you're on iTunes, be sure to click the subscribe button, and you'll automatically receive our next episode.